We are going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Gina Introduction, and I'm the Events Programming Manager here at Meetup. I might be familiar to some of you. I've moderated a few conversations and have also hosted some organizer workshops. Yeah, and welcome to today's Meetup Live on Finding Compatible Connections. I am so excited. Our guests today are dating experts and professional matchmakers, Rachel, Vida, Macklin, and Gina, Yannotta. Did I say that right, Gina? I know I practiced before.
Close. You're close. You were close. Okay. Yannotta, but close.
Yannotta. Oh my God.
That works.
I just practiced with you before.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
And they're going to provide us with some insight into the dating world. After this conversation, we are going to have completely different mindsets where dating is going to just be fun. That's what I'm looking forward to. So before we move into the conversation, I'm going to go over the guidelines for today. So this event is being recorded. Don't worry, you will not appear on camera. Only us three ladies are on camera. However, if you have to leave early or you want to rewatch this, you're welcome to watch the recording and a recap of this event on our blog, meetup.com/blog. Someone had a comment about my fun. Yeah, I want dating to be fun, for me at least. Everyone is muted with the exception of us three. And we encourage you to please submit your questions. We will be turning off the chat shortly, but like I said, we encourage you to submit your questions in the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen, and we will have time in the end to answer some of your questions. Thanks to Zoom, closed captioning is available. The button is at the bottom right of your screen. If you hover over it, you can turn it on and just click on the live transcription icon and select your preferences there. Next slide, please. Okay, so we are briefly going to do introductions. I'm going to introduce these two lovely guests. Then we're going to dive right into the conversation. And then I am going to ask them some of the questions that y'all share with us in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Okay, Gina and Rachel, welcome. So I am going to start with Gina because I see you first. I'm going to introduce Gina. So Gina is the COO. She has an unyielding passion for the field in combination with her extensive experience in matchmaking spanning nearly 10 years. It has allowed her to orchestrate successful and everlasting relationships amongst her clients. Tasked with running a New York City and New Jersey office for Macklin and leading Macklin's operations across the USA. Gina is the ideal business partner in the USA to ensure clients receive the ultimate experience. Rachel, did you say that about Gina? Did that come from Rachel?
I did. I did.
And Rachel is the founder and CEO of Macklin. She has dedicated her career to matchmaking since 2006, and in 2011, Rachel took a leap of faith. Following a series of serendipitous events, she founded Vida, now known as Macklin, and never looked back. Go Rachel. Gone was the dating process of old to be replaced by a new type of matchmaking, one that would be empowering and inclusive, a journey of self-discovery and growth. Over the past 10 years, her mission has been to help her clients find their perfect match and live life to the fullest, thanks to an unrivaled international network of exceptional single people and a team of leading experts. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so excited to have you both here. So I want to learn a little bit more about both of you before we talk about, dating and how to make it fun. So either one of you can answer first. So, what got you started in the matchmaking business? And I guess I will go with Rachel, right? Why did you create Macklin? And please tell us, what is Macklin? And then we will jump into Gina and why, you chose this career.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for having me this evening. I'm really excited to share some of my knowledge and expertise with you. So going right back to the beginning, I think matchmaking was, it was always a dream job for me that I never really knew existed until I was in my mid-20s. I did a psychology degree and master's, and then moved straight into a career in psychology. And over the years in my early 20s, I think I naturally sought out a path for myself that would allow me to work directly with people in quite a positive and uplifting way. There's a lot of psychology jobs that are actually a little bit draining, and they can be quite hard on your own well-being. And so that, yeah, I was about 25. I decided I really wanted to live in London. I was living in the north of England at the time, and stumbled across a job advert for a psychologist to join a matchmaking firm in London. And when I read the job advert, I mean, I'll never forget that moment. I honestly had butterflies in my stomach. I felt like I had angels singing above me. It was a really, really exciting pinnacle moment in my life. And I knew immediately that I had found a career that I felt like I was just kind of born to do. So anyway, I worked for 5 years as a matchmaker, and then made the decision bravely in my early 30s to fly the nest from the world of employment and venture out on my own, which was quite terrifying and exciting at the time. But I really, with Macklin, or what started off as Vida, the Vida consultancy, I think my vision was just, I really wanted to create something very special, combining a really high level of expertise in the team, and a really impressive network of singles all over the world, because I couldn't find anything quite like that out there. And I felt that there was a real need. And also just a really friendly team that really care about our clients, which I feel like I've certainly achieved that. And then, yeah, the rest is history. So we now have Macklin as it is in 2022. Gina?
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Yes. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here as well. So how I got into matchmaking, that's kind of a longer story, but why I love what I do. I genuinely just love working with people. I've been passionate about helping people, and matchmaking, as you can imagine, is a dream career for anyone who's passionate about helping others. And this might sound like a bit corny, but I walk into the office every morning just knowing that I have the opportunity to change someone's life immeasurably for the better. And honestly, Janine, there's no greater feeling than that. There really isn't. There's no greater feeling than helping someone find love. And, you know, as you mentioned earlier, like, dating is loads of fun, but we have loads of fun in the office. As a team, we share so many incredible moments. It's definitely not unusual for one of us to jump up from our desk and do a little bit of a victory dance when one of our clients fall in love or get engaged. So we're really passionate about what we do, and we love it.
Thank you. So I have a few questions, right? So
Sure.
y'all love doing this. And Rachel, you said there's something that you wanted to do from an early age. Like, were you setting people up, like in kindergarten? Were you setting up your classmates, you know, or in like first grade or second grade, and then you just realized, like, wow, I have an act for this. This is what I should do.
Do you know, in all honesty, I wasn't. But there was the various ingredients that are involved in the role that I do were all things that I was kind of driving myself towards with my career. I decided as a teenager that I really wanted to study psychology. I was just really fascinated about how the mind works, really fascinated about why people bully, just like couldn't understand why you would ever do anything that was mean to someone else. I was always a kind person growing up. And so I naturally gravitated myself towards wanting to learn psychology, but I had no idea matchmaking existed as a career until I saw this job advert and thought, where on earth did this come from? And it was just all the elements of it. I thought that is just the perfect role design for me that I never really knew existed until that point.
That's amazing. Okay, so we talked about your favorite role that was designed for you, matchmaking. So for those that are on this call and that aren't sure what matchmaking is, what are some of the main roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, so in between the victory dances, as I mentioned earlier, and the squeals of happiness, there is a lot of hard work that goes on, and everything we do, it has one core objective, which is to get our clients into a relationship with someone compatible. So at Macklin, we do this by combining our expertise, our network, and compassion of the team to deliver the absolute best service possible for our clients. And we do wear quite a few hats as well. We're part headhunters, where we search the globe to find the best matches for our clients. And we're part advisors as well, where we help our clients just navigate through this crazy world of dating, which I'm sure all of you can relate to that are listening in. And what most people, what they don't realize is that in between the talking with clients and setting up the dates, there's also a whole lot of admin that's involved. And sometimes I like it. I tend to be a little bit of a geek at heart when it comes to the admin component. But our matchmakers, they all have their own clients who they assist with navigating through their dating journey. So that's kind of the Cliff Note version of what we do. Of course, I can get much more into detail, but I know we're on a time limit.
Thank you. Thank you. Rachel, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, I think Gina summarized.
Gina covered it all. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to like interject and kind of explain my comments about dating is fun. So I just want to say, like, I always hear that dating is supposed to be fun. I have yet to learn how to make it fun, which is why I'm super excited to be having these conversations with these two lovely ladies, because, you know, they're going to give us the insight that we need to make it that it's something that we enjoy and that we do have fun doing, and we meet really great people. And so that moves me into my next question. So many people are successful in all aspects of their lives, right? Whether it's career, their personal life, but when it comes to finding love, they are not. And I'm going to say that I am probably one of those people. Why is that?
Well, because we all watched way too many Disney movies growing up, and we believe that finding the one should happen by catching someone's eye across the room, or like bumping, you know, grocery carts at the food market. We're very predisposed to wanting to leave love to chance. And, you know, if you think about it, the reason why we've succeeded in all other areas of our lives is because we don't fly by the seat of our pants hoping for the best. We set goals, we plan, we dedicate time, and we really recognize the need for self-growth and self-learning. And I do believe that finding a partner successfully should be approached very mindfully, the same way we would in other aspects of our lives, with the same focus that we would apply to achieving career success or any other type of success.
Thank you. I feel like that's kind of contradictory, right? To like saying have fun, because it's like, when you think about your career, right, and all the planning that goes into it, like it's very serious. And kind of just like I said, like all the advice that I get is like, okay, yeah, this is serious because you're looking for your potential partner, right, your life partner. But yet you're still supposed to enjoy yourself when you're doing it. And this is why this is super important, because we're going to talk about now. You're now going to break down the 5-step dating methodology that psychologists use. So Rachel, if you can please take it away.
Yeah, and I think just to clarify that point, dating, ideally, in an ideal world, dating should be fun, and hopefully some of what we will share this evening will help to create that as an outcome. But in order to create that, the reality is you need to put the groundwork in. So there is a serious component to it, but the outcome of going through the serious component is you get to enjoy dating at the end of it, in the same way that if you work really hard in your career, then you get to buy nice things and go on nice holidays and things like that. So it's a similar-ish kind of principle. The groundwork is still going to need to be done. So there isn't like a silver bullet, do this and everything's just going to be an absolute walk in the park. But I mean, basically with all of the matchmaking that I've done, which is now expanding over 10, 15 years, I've met thousands and thousands and thousands of people from all walks of life, who are sharing with me their experience of dating. And most of those people, the vast majority that I talk to and say, you know, how are you finding dating and what approach are you using? Most people are feeling pretty despondent and pretty exhausted. And that seems to now be the new norm. It's not easy finding a partner, which is a bit bizarre to think about because there's so many people out there. It's like, why can it be so difficult? But that's just the reality of how it is, how people are finding it. So I, with running Macklin over the last 10, 11 years, I think based on the observations that I've had and with the team that I've got, we're constantly scratching our head thinking, what can we do to make dating better? What can we do to help someone navigate through this journey in a more successful way, in a way that is more enjoyable? They might not be skipping down the street singing zippity doo dah, but they're at least feel in control of what they're doing. And there is an element of fun and empowerment, I guess, more than fun with what they're doing. So anyway, so we ended up carving out this 5-stage methodology, which I've created with my team, that we take our clients through. And essentially the premise of it is there's various different components that anyone will go through and should go through if you are a single person and you are serious about finding a long-term compatible partner. This applies to anyone out there. There's a strong leaning into kind of what goes on and from a psychological point of view. So which means that it is sort of very equally applying to anyone out there. I'll very quickly take you through the 5 stages. Now I can go into lots and lots of detail. So if I start talking for too long, feel free to interrupt me, Janine. Basically, the first stage, before you even contemplate getting out there on a date with someone, or you even contemplate registering on a dating app or using a dating service or anything like that, the first step really is to stop and think about who you are as an individual. What are your values? What are your attitudes? What do you stand for in life? Why do you do what you do for a living? Why do you live where you live? Why do you have the friends that you keep? Because the foundation of compatibility is actually about your own core values and the attitudes and the belief systems that you have, which are very unique to you because your life is completely unique. No one else has lived a life exactly like you have. So that's the first step. And we take our clients through a whole range of interviews and exercises and conversations to draw information from them and help them to reflect on who they are. The second stage then is, once you know who you are, you need to start thinking properly about who you are looking for in a partner. What type of partner are you looking for? And this is where we try and encourage people to veer away from the temptation to just pull out a wish list. Today, I want to meet someone like this. Quite like to meet someone blonde hair. I'd like to meet someone 6 foot plus. I'd like to meet someone who plays tennis. Someone who is compatible with you there will be certain constants in place, because your ideal partner's values and attitudes and outlook on life should be either similar to yours or complementary. And so it's important that we build that up, and we have a lot of consultation with our clients to sort of reflect on, well, what people do you normally go for, what sort of relationships have you had, and what's worked and what hasn't worked, and then we will contribute our expert view and experience, and then we will help them to build up a more refined description of who they're looking for, so then they're able to recognize that person when they come into their life. And then the third stage is not so much about who you are and who you're looking for, but more about the relationship itself, which a lot of people kind of skirt over this bit. So it's not just about thinking about who are you looking for, but what is the actual relationship look like? What is, like, give it a bit of context. Where would you be living? How would you be spending time together on a day-to-day basis? What sort of roles would you play in a relationship? So are you looking for a relationship of complete equals, maybe where both people go and have their own career and have a certain level of independence and contribute equally to household chores and all of that sort of stuff? Or are you looking for something which is more defined roles that complement each other? There's no right or wrong answer here. It's really down to your own individual preferences, but it's important to be able to visualize that. And also just to think about some of the practical considerations as well. We work with clients all over the world. And so we have to quite often just help our clients to think about, well, you know, if you're getting on a plane to meet someone and aiming for a long distance relationship, it's not all romantic. There are practical considerations as well. Fourth stage, very quickly, is just putting together a bit of a plan. This sounds really boring. and it is a bit dry, but that's kind of what we help our clients with. And then we help teach them the tactics that they need to master dating really effectively. And then the fifth stage is, which is really where the fun will come in, is just being able to then take all of that information and take all of that journey that you've been on, and then go out and date mindfully with meaning and purpose, which kind of means that you know that you've focused in the right direction with the people that you're looking for to meet, and you know that there is some merit with in every single person that you choose to spend your time with, knowing that with each person that you have a date with, you're getting incrementally closer to your goal of finding a partner. And by doing that, then you do feel a bit more like, it doesn't feel so much like you're flying by the seat of your pants. It feels a little bit more focused and a little bit more controlled.
Thank you, Rachel. So you mentioned there are some tactics. Can you share what some of those tactics are? You know, I'm thinking, like, for myself, like, I know, like, I can make a list of, like, okay, this is what I'm looking for in my partner. This is exactly what I, you know, deserve and should have, right? And maybe, like, break away from old patterns of maybe selecting people that weren't so great for me. But it's very difficult. Like, once you have those patterns ingrained, you know, going out on a date with someone, it's most likely that you're going to attract that person from before rather than the new person that you're looking for. So, like, what are some tactics or some ways that you can stay aligned with, you know, the new person that you're looking for?
Yeah, well, the more practical tactics are kind of easy, because that's just about learning the art of dating. You master the art of dating, and you can think about what sort of questions that you should ask on a date, what sort of venue you should meet in, and you know, that's all pretty straightforward. What a lot of people don't really think about, which is a kind of more challenging area to just delve into and to really understand, is the stuff that kind of goes on in your mind. When we're dating, we quite often kind of want to point the finger elsewhere and think, well, dating's not working for me because dating apps aren't any good, or there's no dating sites out there that are worth putting my profile on. And sometimes that's true, and there's an element of truth perhaps in that, arguably. But sometimes there is some things that we can change in our own mindset, which having that knowledge and just informing yourself about some of that, which is what we spend a lot of time doing with our clients, it can really then help to feel that you're on a growth path, rather than just feeling like dating is it's like chaotic and there's no control, there's no process that you're trying to follow, there's no rhyme or reason for the dating app that you're on, and the people that you're meeting. And it shouldn't, in an ideal world, it shouldn't just feel like a numbers game, and it shouldn't feel like it's a bit of a punt with everyone that you're meeting. There's a lot that you can do to keep yourself kind of focused and feeling like your mind is attuned in the right direction.
Thank you. So, okay, you mentioned mindful dating, and I know you touched a little bit on this. So, determining hangups, right, is super important, especially for you to be successful at this. So, how does this help when finding your match? And how do you? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it is, if you because it's the challenges that you might face with dating, because it's the tools that you use are one thing, but the mindset that you have towards dating is a whole other area. And actually, once you get into it, it's a really, really interesting topic. A lot of people today are really interested in mindfulness and self-growth, and a lot of people maybe in this audience go out and they listen to TED Talks and watch masterclasses about various different wellness topics, but we quite often don't think about mindfulness and personal growth when it comes to dating, going back to what Gina said before, because we kind of just want it to happen by chance. We're all have been raised to believe that it should just happen in a more serendipitous environment. So I think it's important to have a really healthy mindset, because that can help tip you from feeling a bit fed up and despondent about dating into, I'm actually enjoying the experience more.
So I know I keep on talking about myself. I am probably like the biggest overthinker there is, right? So I know we I keep on saying dating should be fun, fun, fun. Like for the, you know, the initial thought of like going out, meeting new people, like that's super exciting. I love that. I welcome that. For me, it gets really scary and isn't fun anymore when I start to develop feelings or when I start to like the person. And then that's when I immediately start to overthink everything. And then that's when it's no longer fun.
Yeah. Well, so what quite often happens, not just in dating, but in our day-to-day lives, and we all do it, is we all perform what are broadly called in the psychology world cognitive biases, which basically means that our brains receive so much information that we have to take mental shortcuts in order to simplify the way we process that information. So every second, for example, we absorb about 10 million pieces of information, apparently. And you imagine that's quite a lot of information, sounds and sights and tastes and everything through all of our senses. And if you apply that to the context of dating, so you might be messaging someone, or you've met someone for a first date, and you're in front of someone, or you're interacting with someone who's basically a stranger, and you're trying to make all these judgments, your brain is going absolutely into overdrive. You're trying to interpret words, tone, volume, body language. You have to make all these decisions and judgments really quickly so that you can work out how to respond and work out, is this person right for me? So it's understandably really, really exhausting stuff. And out of all that information that gets flooded into our brain, we can only process a tiny amount of it effectively. So our brain then decides to take has to take shortcuts in order to help us. And that leads to, quite often, we make errors in our judgment. Everyone does it. But it can sometimes help just to learn about the how our mind works, because if we learn a little bit more about how our mind works, well, then we can recognize some of these errors when they're happening and try and work around it. I can give you an example or two if you'd like me to.
Yeah, I mean, I also want to know, I know that overthinking is a really big hang up. So what are some other really common hang ups, and, you know, how do you get past them?
Okay, so one example of a common hang up that I've come across a lot and might resonate with some people out there listening to this today is so imagine you are messaging someone who you've met online, and you're exchanging messages, and it's all getting really exciting, a bit flirty, a little bit cheeky, and then suddenly the person that you're messaging sends you a message where they're maybe just taking it a little step too far. They're maybe starting to get a bit suggestive about getting physical, and you decide, hey, right, I'm happy to flirt and I'm happy to be cheeky and inject a little bit of excitement, but if you've got any thoughts, and we haven't even met in person yet, and already you're talking about getting physical, no way, that's it. So you decide to delete the message, you block them, and you erase them from your mind, and then you move on. Right, I need to now look for someone else. But you're thinking, God, it's a shame, because actually that person, I was really enjoying getting to know them, and I think everything else about them looked like it had real merit. What might be happening there is that you are making what's called fundamental attribution error, psychology term, which basically means that you're taking that piece of information because you've decided that what this person did was wrong, being suggestive about getting physical. I decide that that's crossing the line for me. They've overstepped the mark. You're making a judgment about their overall character, rather than just thinking, well, maybe they sent the message and they realized that actually, oh God, I probably shouldn't have sent that, and I can recognize that I've overstepped the mark, but they're not given any opportunity to explain themselves or to even apologize, because you've already blocked them and moved on to the next person. So by making a fundamental attribution error, we're sort of taking one tiny piece of information and making this huge judgment about their character. Sometimes that judgment can be accurate if it's something extreme, but quite often it's not accurate at all. And by doing that in dating, there will be a number of instances where you might decide to move away from someone who actually was completely compatible with you. And what perhaps that you could do if faced with that situation again is maybe just to let them know, hey, don't push it, stop being, don't be going too far, basically, and just point out to them politely that any sort of suggestion along that line is a little bit too much. Then you'll see their behavior. They might apologize and say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And then everything's fine again, and you can kind of move on. Or if they continue to push it, obviously, then you decide, right, it is definitely time to block. So that's a fundamental attribution error. Another quick one, which is also very, very commonplace, is, and you see it a lot with online dating. So you might have a date with someone and then get ghosted. Ghosting is, honestly, it's the biggest bane in my life. It's so frustrating, and it happens to we get ghosted as matchmakers, by the way, as well, which is just like, oh my God. And so anyway, you might meet someone, afterwards they ghost you, and you think, what on earth has happened there? You're completely puzzled. You talk to your friends, and you might conclude, well, actually, it's the app or the dating site or whatever that's at fault. And there's no one on this app that is quality. Everyone's obviously a player because this person has ghosted me. And then from there, your kind of mindset shifted. So you then continue, maybe reluctantly, continuing on that app. Well, now I'm, may as well just continue on because I don't really know what else to do. And then you suddenly find yourself spotting lots of flaws in the profiles that you're looking at. And essentially what you might be experiencing in that situation is called confirmation bias, psychological term, which means that your mind is now you've got a theory. Your theory is this app is a waste of time, and the people on there are not serious in the way that I am. So what you're doing is you're now looking for evidence to back up that theory. That might lead to you then deciding after a short period, I'm now going to abandon the app altogether. Or worse still, you give up on dating altogether. And I see that all the time with people saying, no one's serious out there. Everyone's a player. There's no decent people left. There's no hope. And I'm just going to stop dating. And then they're taking no action. And therefore, there is little or no chance of them being able to meet someone. And actually, it's just a bias that has led them down this path. And what we would encourage people to do if we think that they're experiencing that is to just try and be a little bit more objective, and make sure that they're assessing the profiles and just taking a more balanced view, playing devil's advocate, I suppose, a little bit, to try and make sure that they're not forming a big judgment on just one incident and one piece of information.
Thank you. Gina, is there anything that you'd like to add?
So one of the questions that we get quite often is, once you have a match, how do you prepare for the date? Or what about if I have some sort of like social anxiety or dating anxiety, how do I navigate that? And I want you all to know that it is so normal to feel some level of anxiety. It might come from lack of knowledge on dating etiquette, for example, like what to ask on a first date. And that's where we come in. We help bridge the gap and help you really navigate how to master a date, or the anxiety. It might be more psychological. So we can organize, a session with an expert psychologist who will apply techniques such as CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, breath work, etc. And I don't know if you want me to go more into detail, Janine, but I can talk about like how you might manage anxiety before going on the date. I'm not sure how we're doing timing.
Yes, please.
Okay.
We're doing okay on timing. Yes.
Okay,
I
great.
have terrible anxiety before a date and probably during.
Yeah, no, and listen, that's normal. I kind of like to break it into two different segments. So we have the physical components of physical anxiety and emotional anxiety. So before you go on the date, you might start feeling nervous. So you're experiencing your heart racing, dry mouth, butterflies in your stomach. You can't eat anything the night before. Your body is essentially giving off a lot of symptoms of anxiety, and you can help manage that so that you don't walk up to the date in like an absolute fluster. And it might sound obvious, but breathing, it it does wonders because your heart is racing. You might find that you're, taking like really fast breaths in and out, and you can control that by just breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, taking like slow, deep breaths, and making sure that, you kind of control your heart rate. And if you Google, there's like so many resources online, which kind of can teach you through the breath work. But I also do suggest just getting to the date a bit early. And even like 15 minutes is fine. It doesn't need to be like an hour or anything like that. Especially if it's a new venue that you've never been to before. So you can kind of just get settled, which will help you feel a little bit more in control in the date when they arrive. And, one thing to do as well is maybe just like call a friend beforehand. You could run through the thoughts that are going through your head, because sometimes getting the information out of your head is like a really good way to keep calm, and it's a good form of therapy to release anxiety. But also like some anxiety, it's good. I know that might come to a surprise, but it is. Everyone will experience some level of anxiety, and it can benefit you, and it can keep you focused. However, if you feel that it's like getting out of control, you can obviously see a coach or a CBT therapist that can give you a more individualized approach on how to handle that. And then the emotional component. So that is, I kind of talked about it a little bit, but it can be pinned to your thoughts. So you have to try and think consciously on what you're worried about. So my suggestion would be just write it down. Journaling, it's so effective. It's a really effective way of managing anxiety. So, for example, you might be worried about like rejection, or worried about what to talk about on the date, not being attractive enough or good enough, or feeling that you might be a bit judged. So it's really good to just think about this, write it down, pinpoint exactly what's going on through your mind. And I can give you some like quick tips on how to do that as well, Janine, if that works.
Yes, Janine, yes, I want to hear it all.
You want to hear it all? Okay, no,
Yes.
I'm looking at the time. I just want to make sure I'm Italian.
We're doing okay, don't worry.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, so a few quick tips. So basically, it's important to reframe the date in itself. So what I mean by that is, don't think of it as going on a date. So don't think of it as, okay, I'm going on a first date with a stranger that I've never met before. Think of it as a meeting. So it's almost like a bit of a screening exercise. So you're essentially meeting someone to decide, A, if they have enough interest in you, and B, if you have enough interest in them, and then also deciding if you should go on a second date. And the second date will be the real first date. So if it doesn't work out, you're not emotionally invested, versus going into it thinking, it has to be fireworks or earth shattering or anything like that. And keeping the date fairly short is really important too. So my suggestion is 60 to 90 minutes. It's plenty of time to get to know someone sufficiently without kind of feeling like you need to share every single detail about your whole life. And then you kind of just run out of things to say. You want to make sure that you're ending on a high note rather than kind of exhausting yourself. And you also, you can prepare some topics as well. I'm not sure if anyone's ever heard of 36 questions to fall in love. If not, feel free to Google it. It definitely can give you some inspiration, but I would also just take some notes from their profile and form questions that way. So an example might be, oh, I saw that you went to Costa Rica. You really enjoyed it. I was actually there last year. Where did you stay? Just super simple, key to the point. And just make sure to also like avoid oversharing. You can do this by kind of telling yourself beforehand what the limitations are. When you're anxious, sometimes we don't stop talking. Trying to think of a better way to say that, but we really just kind of just don't have a filter. It just doesn't kick in. We walk away from the date thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I just said that. So a way to avoid that is give yourself a little bit of a pep talk beforehand and tell yourself, okay, so these are the topics that I don't want to get into. So typically like topics to avoid would be anything that might bring up a negative emotion. So breakups, divorces, trying to keep the topics fairly light, fairly enjoyable. A successful first date is one where you'll likely walk away thinking like, wow, that was really great. I really enjoyed it. I smiled a lot. I'm feeling really happy, feeling really elevated. And lastly, one other piece of advice is you can tell someone that you're nervous instead of trying to mask it. You might find that they respond saying the same thing, and it's not a bad thing. Some people can find it quite endearing, although it might not seem like the right thing to do. It's always best to be honest. Honesty is the best policy, as I'm sure you all may have heard.
Honest and vulnerable, right? So
Yeah.
I have a question, Gina. Thank you for all that information that you shared. So you mentioned, you know, if you see their profile, take some notes on their profile. Well, what if it isn't online dating? Let's say like I met someone at the gym and then we're going on a date. Like, is there any way for me to prepare with, I mean, I don't want to be a stalker or a cyber stalker. I'm good at it, but I don't want to do that. And hopefully no one that I ever date will ever listen to this and know that I cyber stalk them. But you know, so what can you do if it's not an online dating, you know, if you're not online dating and there's no profile?
Yeah, you definitely don't want to cyber stalk and start talking about this person's dog if, you know, they didn't mention anything about having a dog. So I would say, you know, generally speaking, you probably would have exchanged phone numbers, right? And you probably would have exchanged, you know, a few things back and forth. So let's just say if they're like, oh, you know what, I'm not available this weekend because I'm visiting my grandma up in upstate New York. You can bring something like that up and say, you know, oh, how was that visit? How did it go? You know, does she live alone? Do you visit her often? What is your relationship like with her? Things like that you might have already, you know, talked about previously. And then also that 36 questions, it might come across as like a little bit constructed, but it does have a few different questions that are a little bit more interesting that you can bring up as well. So you can kind of play around with it and go back and forth.
I think as well, just to add to that, people love hearing stories. People quite often also love talking about themselves. So if you can think about some questions to ask the person that you're on a date with, which are, you know, they're pretty safe. It's not going to be anything too intrusive or evoking any sort of feelings of negativity. And it could be about, you know, most people enjoy travel, and that, you know, that might sound like a pretty basic, simple question, but it's a really good conversation sort of pointer to veer towards if you're not quite sure what else to be asking. But also just think about stories. People love hearing about experiences that you have had about, oh, well, when I went here and when I went there. And, you know, one time whenever I was a kid, I remember like having this conversation with my parents, but try and keep everything fairly light and upbeat. Going back to what Gina said, your ultimate outcome when you finish a date is that you don't want to feel that you have just had some sort of counseling session or therapy session. So it's either you being the counselor or the other person. You want to feel that you've enjoyed yourself, but they've enjoyed themselves as well. And it's always trying to maintain that balance. I quite often talk about dating as being a bit like a dance. You both have an equal role to make sure that you are dancing at the same rhythm at every stage, so that you are contributing sort of equal levels of vulnerability, talking and sharing to a similar level, but then also getting into the rhythm of the dating as well. That finding, you might be someone who wants to go on a date with somebody you really like, somebody you think, I want to go on a date like 2 or 3 times a week, and they maybe only want to go on a date once a week or once a fortnight, and it's trying to maneuver things so that you're always trying to find this sort of happy medium that you both feel really comfortable with, rather than being pushy or being needy or insistent.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, I was going to say, now I understand why I'm not good at dating. It's like a dance. I have 2 left feet and I have no rhythm and I'm super stiff. My dancing
we're very good at teaching people how to dance. So
yeah, my dancing skills are so awful. Okay, we're right at time for a Q&A. So we're going to share one more slide to give you both an opportunity to share more about Macklin, and then we're going to jump into the Q&A from the audience.
Great. Oh, sorry, I thought you were pulling something up. There we go. Great. Yeah, so at Macklin, everyone, we have 2 different types of memberships that I want to go through. So if you are single and serious about finding a compatible long-term partner, then we have, several different options to go through, with fees ranging anywhere from like complimentary right up to $15,000 plus. And we welcome members from all over the world. We have 4 offices in the USA, New York, New Jersey, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. And then we also have one in Mayfair, London. And we welcome a consultation with anyone, regardless of who they are and the type of partner that they're looking for. From there, we'll guide them on whether we're the right service for them, or if we feel that we should refer them to another agency and kind of guide them into the right direction. So there are 2 tiers of matchmaking membership. So firstly, we have our private membership. So that's for people that are feeling like, finding a partner is a priority. And through this membership, you will work with a dedicated matchmaker. You'll save time and fast track your dating life. You'll have a series of tailored introductions, and you'll work with us over a 6 or 12-month membership period. And our success rate is actually over 80% of getting our clients into a relationship. And one fun fact is that we are running a bonus offer today for all of you guys that are listening. So drum roll, please. Our fees, they start at $15,000. However, for all of you lovely people that are here with us in the afternoon/evening, depending on where you're located, we are offering $2,000 off of our fees for everyone that's attended, and we're running that until the end of summer, so end of August. So we'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to know more about matchmaking and work out whether if it might be the right option for you, let's start with a quick 10-minute phone call. And we could talk with one of our experts, and we can kind of understand a little bit more about what you're looking for in a partner, but you can understand a little bit more about how we work. The lovely Emily, she puts a Calendly link in the chat box for you to book in a time that suits you best. And then our second tier of membership is our open membership. So this is our passive membership, and you will be part of an online network, but you won't work with a dedicated matchmaker, so it's completely different. There is no guarantee of being matched. However, we'll hold your profile, which our team of global matchmakers will have access to. And our matchmakers, they hand select our most suitable open members for our individual private members. And this is usually invite only. However, another special offer here, everyone that's listening will receive a complimentary invitation as a thank you for attending today into our open member network. So we'll offer you a complimentary invite code until the end of August, again, until the end of summer. So we'd really love to hear from you. Emily has put a link in the chat box for you, and I believe an email will also go out at some point, right, Janine? Something like that.
That's correct. Great. It'll be some point early next week.
Awesome. So listen, if you're single, which I'm assuming most of you are, if you're listening in, and if you're interested in some help with finding a compatible long-term partner, just go ahead and book a consultation via the link that Emily has shared. Me or someone on my team is super excited to have a chat with you. At the very least, you might learn a little bit about how to master dating. Happy to give some more advice, but at best, you might find your dream partner. It's definitely possible.
Yeah, I would. Sorry, and just to add to that, if there might be some people on here, you're looking more for casual dating, or you're not quite ready to really launch into looking for a relationship, which is, that's absolutely fine. You're very welcome to get in contact with us at some point in the future. But if you are someone who is serious about having a relationship, and I can see just I had a quick snoop at some of the questions. There's quite a lot of questions from people saying, do you work with people who are in their 60s or in Canada? And the answer is kind of yes to everything. We welcome people from the LGBTQ plus community. So essentially, if you're a human being, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, what age you are, what sort of partner you're looking for, we would very much welcome a consultation. And as Gina said, we do have our open membership, which is completely complimentary. So there's no fee associated with that at all. we have a lot of resource as well. We deliver lots of workshops and masterclasses as well. So there is more expertise, more knowledge that we're very eager to share. And then, of course, we have our sort of more premium level of service for anyone who wants to go down the sort of fully fledged matchmaking side of things.
Thank you, Gina, and thank you, Rachel. Okay, I am going to dive into the Q&A. We have a ton of questions from the audience. And if there's, this one, I'm so interested to know the answer to this one. Anonymous asks, given how painful dating is, getting rejected, my question is, do you have any ideas or suggestions or how to embrace rejection in the dating process?
So I say that bit again?
Do you have any ideas or suggestions on how to embrace rejection in the dating process?
Okay, right. So I had a similar conversation about this a few days ago with someone actually. So sometimes it helps, or it just brings a little comfort to know that everyone out there in the dating world will have experienced some level of rejection. It is a normal part of the journey. Sometimes just knowing that can sometimes help a little bit. If you are serious about finding a relationship, it means that you're being quite discerning about people that you are meeting, and that will also go the other way. That sometimes it can be a healthy sign that someone is also discerning about wanting to find the right partner for them as well. When we meet someone for a date, we're constantly going through this mental checklist of what feels a little bit like, am I enjoying my time with this person? But actually, we're usually asking some deeper questions around, is this someone who actually shares my values and shares my attitude to life? We don't think about that consciously. This is all subconscious assessment that's going on. And sometimes the reason why someone might reject you, which is, it's a horrible term to use, but if you are feeling like that, sometimes and I know it's sometimes hard to process this, but it's not something that needs to be taken personally. It's just someone's assessment of, I don't think you're right for me, but maybe you would be a really great partner for someone else.
Mm-hmm. That's very difficult to do, how to not take it personally, right? But you're 100% right. We have another question from Claudia. Can we get the list of the 5 techniques again and how to implement them?
Yes, definitely. If you get in contact with us, and we can share more resource with you about the 5 stages, and there's lots of different, we have values exercise, there's lots of resources that we can share with you in lots of different formats, so please get in touch.
We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. Okay, Shannon wants to know, if a person has all of the qualities you're looking for, you get along great with them, but you're not physically attracted to them, even after a couple of months, what do you do?
Oh, that's a hard one. I thought you were going to say after a date, and I was going to say, we'll definitely go on another date.
Yeah.
After a couple of months, that's a hard one, because I think that's a pretty healthy length of time to get to know someone. It then becomes a sort of personal preference for you. Do you want to continue investing time into getting to know that person? Because there is always a chance that spark, that physical attraction will suddenly appear after a period of time. But 2 months is a pretty healthy shot, to be honest. I always recommend to people, if you have a date with someone, we would get this all the time as well. I've had a date with someone, I really enjoyed their company, didn't feel the spark, so therefore I'm not going to go on a second date. And then I want to give them a good shake and say, you really should go on a second date until you're absolutely sure. Never walk away from a maybe. Yeah, 2 months.
Thank you. Okay, so we've gotten a few questions about how to start dating when you're older, and also, how to get back into the dating field if you've taken some time off. Do you have any pointers for both?
Yeah, so I think a lot about the dating when you're older or dating when you have been out of the dating world I've worked with people who've been out of the dating world for 30 years. And the last time they were single, mobile phones didn't even exist. And all of a sudden they're like, what's this texting and emoji business? How does that apply? And actually that's probably going more towards the tactics that we touched on very briefly earlier, that there's a lot that you can learn about the art of dating, and some, the rules and the techniques and dating etiquette. It's pretty straightforward stuff if you have the right resource in front of you. That could either be you can find lots and lots of stuff online, just use the powers of Google, or if you don't want to start sifting through lots of blogs and things like that you're not quite sure if it's giving the right sort of advice, then come and speak to a dating and relationship expert who can then guide you based on your own individual circumstances. And with dating it doesn't matter what age you are, that if you're looking, whatever age of adulthood, whatever stage of life that you're at, the whole journey that you go on is actually very similar. I've worked with lots of clients who are in their 60s and 70s, and it's really endearing actually to see how giddy they get about dating, and there's sort of the flirtations that can go on just as much as someone who's in their 20s or 30s.
Thank you. Okay, we have more questions. All right, so Diane, I know we have so many questions. This is wonderful. Okay, Diane wants to know, most meetups with the guy starts with the guy rhyming off his life story about previous failed relationships with no expectation to respond in mind. How should we navigate this on a first date and stay positive?
Yeah, you see, the reality is most people don't know how to handle a first date. So they will go back to what Gina mentioned earlier, where they maybe get into talking too much, and afterwards they'll think, I can't believe I spoke so much about my ex or breakups or whatever, or I didn't ask enough questions or said too much about myself. Or they start talking about a topic that is on the front of their mind, rather than being just a little bit more considerate really with the topic that they're discussing. So you can either choose between forming a judgment on, I didn't enjoy that date and I didn't like the way the conversation went, so then I'm going to walk away. Or you could choose to maybe be a kind of take a more forgiving approach, I suppose, and just think, okay, maybe the person I was on a date with was nervous and they kind of messed it up a little bit. I'll go on another date or two and see if I can have a slightly different experience. And quite often, a lot of people who have a first date, which is, yeah, there was some interest there, but yeah, the conversation was a bit weird, that you can find that everything can completely turn around within the next date or two dates after that. And all of a sudden people feel much more relaxed and start behaving like their true selves.
Yeah. And just to add to that too, I think it's really important as well to just assess it, that where they could have just had not the best day. A lot of people sometimes are coming from work. So one piece of advice that I always give to my clients is, if you are going to a date from work, it's so important for you to kind of just switch off, because sometimes you might go into the date with that type of energy, depending on how your day went. So my suggestion would be, if you're in a cab or, on some sort of public transportation, or if you're driving to the date, just kind of take a second when you're parked and do just a quick 5-minute meditation, just to kind of clear your mindset and get out of that whole mode, that work mode, so that you can, date mindfully on the first date.
Thank you. Okay, so I know that someone asked about the 36 questions, and I want to know about that too before we go. So where can we find the 36 questions that you mentioned, Gina?
So actually, oh, sorry, again.
Google. Everything's on Google.
We both are about to shout Google.
Yeah,
you should be able to just Google it, and it should come up.
I think it's by Dr. Aaron, A-R-A-N or O-N. And it's 36 questions to find love, something like that. Yeah. I find some of the questions a little bit strange, a little bit controversial. Yeah. So, take it with a pinch of salt, but it can be a little bit playful. And if you do decide to ask any of these questions on a date, you can introduce it a bit like, okay, so I find these questions online and I'm going to shoot a question at you and just, kind of explain what you're doing, and that it's not, some question that you've just come up with, but also combine that with some questions that are based on information that you know about the person. So yeah, make sure that you do ask some questions that are personalized, and encourage them to reciprocate. Hopefully they will.
Yeah, I think one of the questions is like, what celebrity would you go to dinner with or something like that? So if you just shoot that out randomly on the date, they might just be like, it's a little bit random. So what Rachel said, where you preface it where, hey, I came across this 36 questions. You can even say, I was on this webinar and these matchmakers mentioned it. I don't know how it's going to go, but let's give it a try. And
I love that. You know what? I think I'm going to do that on my next date. I'm going to be like, okay, someone mentioned that I should ask one of these 36 questions. So here goes. And maybe I can give him a list also, and he can pick the questions that he wants to ask me from the list. That'd be fun if I feel like answering the question. Okay, we are over time. Thank you so much, Gina and Rachel, for joining us today and for sharing all this very important information, the 5 steps, and how to, the 36 questions, how to deal with anxiety, how to jump back into dating. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And if anyone joined late, don't worry, you can access the recording and a recap of this event on our blog. It'll be available early next week on meetup.com/blog. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Bye.